Yesterday, what I was sharing is one of the benefits of understanding that it's in the spirit that you got changed, not the physical body, not your mental, emotional part, but it's your spirit. One of the things that I learned through that is that in the spirit, I am complete. Colossians chapter 2, verse 10. We are complete in Him. In my spirit, I have everything. My spirit's as perfect right now as it will ever be in eternity. It's not going to have to grow up when I get to heaven. It's not going to have to be dusted off, purified, washed, cleansed. Right now in my spirit, I'm as perfect and pure as Jesus is. 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, 1 Corinthians 6, 17, and just so many other places. I've already dealt with all of this. And one of the very first applications that I made of this teaching to my life was I thought that faith was something that was out there and I was striving for it and trying to get faith, trying to do something to earn more faith. The very first application I think that I made of this was to recognize I already had the faith of the Son of God. Man, that revolutionized my life. I didn't doubt that faith worked. I just wasn't sure that I had any of it. And when I began to acknowledge that I already, in my spirit, had faith given unto me, and it wasn't a human faith, it was God's supernatural faith, I began to recognize that, man, I could do anything that God could do because it was His faith. It was His power on the inside of me. The only thing that was limiting the demonstration of God's faith was my understanding. And this is what I was talking about yesterday out of 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, where it says, all things that pertain unto life and godliness are given unto us through the knowledge of Him that has called us to glory and virtue. And the only reason I wasn't seeing faith work was because I didn't have the right knowledge. For one thing, I was denying or ignorant. It wasn't malicious, but nonetheless, I was denying that I even had faith. So I would let the devil talk me out of it. Let me present it to you this way. I've seen people raised from the dead. I've seen my son raised from the dead. We had a service, what we call Healing is Here, and I forget the exact year of this. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And a woman brought up a 14-month-old baby that actually died during the service. We had 6 people up there doing a panel. We were talking about healing. And while we were doing this panel, she just walked to the front and put her dead baby on the stage. And I mean, she was holding this baby and the arms were just limp. The baby had already started changing color. It was a black baby. It wasn't real dark, but anyway, you could see that the lips were turning purple. And there's just no life in this baby. There was no breath in this baby. And so anyway, we laid hands on that baby. I was standing on the stage and a couple of my people that were in this deal, they jumped down there and they were holding this baby. And I was just, a foot or two away from this baby. And there was a bunch of us praying. And all of a sudden, this baby just jerked and threw its arms up in the air and started breathing, opened its eyes. And it came back to life. We saw that baby raised from the dead. Now, I've got people that are watching this program all around the world, and there's some of you that will say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that miracles happen. I don't know what to say to you. I'm just telling you what happened. You'd have to call me a liar. You have to say, well, maybe he wasn't truly dead. Maybe he just looked dead. Well, I'm sure that there's people that thought that same thing about Lazarus when Lazarus was raised from the dead. Some people thought maybe he was just in a coma and he wasn't truly dead. I don't know how to prove anything to you, but I'm telling you, I've seen my son raised from the dead. I've seen my wife raised from the dead. I've seen multiple people raised from the dead. There are many of you that believe that, and you believe that that is the potential. You believe that miracles like that can happen today. But if you had been in that service, and if I had asked you to come up and pray for that baby, all of a sudden, instead of your faith being exciting and something that you were looking for, you'd turn to dread. All of a sudden, all of your enthusiasm would leave. Now, what happened? It's not that you doubted that faith worked. You just doubt that you have it. You just doubt that it's working in your life. And see, this is where most people are. They know that faith is powerful. You can read in the Bible how that they were able to split the Red Sea, how that people were able to see their dead raised, and they were able to see miracles and things. You know that faith works, but the problem is we just don't believe that we have it. This radically changed my life when I came to the realization that unto every man was dealt the measure of faith. Romans 12:3. And according to Paul, he said the faith that he was using was the faith of the Son of God. If there's only one measure, like Romans 12:3 says, and if Paul had the faith of the Son of God, not just faith in the Son of God, but the faith of the Son of God, well, then that meant that I have the faith of the Son of God. That means that you have Jesus' supernatural faith in your spirit. Galatians 5:22 and 23, you have faith. That's one of the fruit of the Spirit. When I saw this, man, it just excited me. Now, I still didn't understand how to use it. I didn't know how to get it out, but just knowing that I had it changed my whole attitude. It made me start just looking, and I was determined that I was going to learn how faith worked. I was going to learn the laws that govern faith, but I believed that I had it somewhere, and I just began to start looking. You know, if you don't doubt that you've got faith, if you don't doubt that God gave you faith, well, then you may not know exactly how to get from where you are to where you're seeing it work, but that ought to encourage you just to know that it's there. If I told you that you had $1 million buried in your backyard, and if you really believe that, did you know if all you had was a spoon, you might take a lot of work, but eventually you could find it. You could dig and you could find it. If you had a bulldozer, if you had a backhoe, if you had some machinery, you could get there quicker. But if you really believed, you would start looking for it if all you had was a spoon. It's the same thing. Most people, the reason they give up so quickly is because they really don't feel like they have the faith of God. When I got these scriptures and I realized that God dealt to every person the measure of faith, and Paul's measure was the faith of the Son of God, that meant that my measure was the faith of the Son of God. It's in here somewhere. I just determined I was